fluctuate. So like, duplicates moving around from like, let's say you have it set to extreme and you want to pull more images out, because extreme can be pretty extreme depending on how you shoot. Like I've gotten clusters of like 50 images when I'm on extreme. And so pulling more of those images out would mean that I have to review less, because obviously it's pulling more out of the set. Whereas like if you're on lenient, you may want to select less out of each duplicate set because you do have smaller sets of images.
Making sense there, guys?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then it also has a cool feature where it can select sneak previews for you. It does just pick, am I correct that it picks them at random?
So it's comparing your images to images that have been posted on social media and have trended in the past.
Okay.
And so what we're looking at is composition, lighting, just some basic things. So again, it's not going to be super specific because we can't really, like you may get a picture of a random old person, but someone on the internet may have posted like a picture of a grandmother crying, and that was the image that went viral. So if you get random old people stuck in there, it's not because we know what we're doing, it's just because we're comparing it to those trending images. So
interesting. I never knew that. See? So for me as an overshooter, I shoot way too much. So I set this to extreme. I want there to be, only the top 10% of the duplicates will be chosen here. These are my settings, and I don't let it choose the sneak peeks for me. I like to personally go through and do that just as somebody that was there. I know what moments my clients are looking to see right away. So then it would start culling, but you have the option here to change the star and color ratings for each category. So it has 5 categories. So selected are the images that it passes muster. It says, this is a good image. It's not out of focus. It's not a duplicate of something. If it is a duplicate, we think that this is the best one. So Aftershoot is designed to pick at least one frame from every duplicate set. So that way there's no missing moments. It'll group a bunch of them together, but it'll say, okay, you need at least one of these to be selected. So it's going to pick one for you. You can always go back and change that. You can say, I actually want these 5 instead of just this one. But these are just your starting points. So duplicates, it'll tag all of the duplicates as yellow. Anything that's blurred, out of focus, motion blur, things like that, it tags as red. And closed eyes, it tags as purple. You can change all of these to be whatever colors you like, whatever star ratings that you like, and what works best for you. I leave it as the default. That's just how I have learned to operate with it. Let me go next, and we'll tell it to start culling. So now that it's imported, it's going to start culling. This particular album was already imported once. I just did it again, just so that you guys can see it. See the process of importing it. So I'm going to get out of here, get rid of this. So here is a wedding that I did. And I use a wedding as a good example because there's a lot of different things going on. There's a lot of different parts of the day. There's just so many moving pieces. And as an overshooter, this is how I use Aftershoot to my advantage and how I've added it to my workflow, which is really what I wanted to make this demo be about more than anything else. So I let it go through and I let it do all of its normal calculations here and tells me, okay, out of the 3,000 I gave it, it selected 1147. I don't expect Aftershoot to do 100% of the work for me. It is not the final say in culling as far as I'm concerned. It just does the heavy lifting. It's going to go through and sort out the blinks, the blurred photos, things with closed eyes, the stuff that I would get rid of anyway. And it puts all the duplicates together so I can quickly tab through them and see, okay, these are similar, and I can just quickly pick the best of the best. So my process, how I do this, I start by taking everything out of selected. Because I don't use the sneak peeks feature, this is the only way that my workflow works. So I would then go in and I'd select them all and I turn them all to sneak peeks. So I just select them all and hit 4. So because I'm coming from photo mechanic, I find it easier to choose the photos that I want to keep rather than choosing the photos that I don't want, and taking them out. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. I can't see faces for whatever reason right now. It's only letting me hear you guys. So just because that's how we operate in photo mechanic, that's how we would have operated in Lightroom. So I wanted to come up with a workflow that's similar to that, but still utilizes the AI engines here. So once I've turned them all to sneak peeks, I now have a category with nothing in it. It's 5. It's my selected images. So my first thing is I go to show all photos, and I want to make sure that my timestamp photos are selected because I need those. They're important. And then I start going through the closed eyes and the blurred folders. So I'll start with closed eyes. There's a couple of settings within each one. Where is the, under this one?
You check your door, Vicky?
Justin, what happened to the hide photos with better duplicates filter? Did that disappear on me?
It was just
Nope.
there. I just saw it.
You did? Okay,
Yeah.
I'm not crazy. I was like, have I
No,
lost
go
it?
back up. Very bottom. It's on.
Ah, there. Okay, it used to be a bigger switch. Sorry. So it used to be like the bigger thing. So I always turn this on because if the AI says that there was a better photo that wasn't blurry, in this case, or didn't have closed eyes, it has already selected it for me. So we would find it here in sneak peeks. So I only want to go through the ones that it's like, we couldn't find something that was similar. We don't know if you're going to like these. So not all of these are really great. Obviously, like, who wants that photo? Nobody. So I'll just quickly tab through them to see if there's something. So this is closed eyes. It doesn't just read your main character. It's going to see everybody in the frame that's in focus. So in this case, because they're squinting and they're backlit, it tags it as closed eyes. Is there probably a better one? Sure. But do I want to make sure that I get this image? I'm going to put it into my 5s. So that's the first thing that I've added to my 5s. So I'll click through these. I'll select a few more that aren't awful. Full disclosure, guys, I have not actually looked at this album yet, so I have no idea what's in here. So yeah, we'll keep that one. So that's everything with closed eyes. So here she's squinting because she's smiling. Her eyes aren't all the way closed, but it's still going to tag that as closed eyes. So you definitely do want to look through these just to make sure. You know, because sometimes like
when
that's
you say
cute.
you're making it a 5, how are you doing that?
I just use the number keys on my keyboard.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so once it's selected, like once it's the highlighted photo down here at the bottom of the film strip, just you know, your keys for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will change it to 5 stars. Now you have the option to set it so that 5 stars and green don't necessarily mean the same thing. You can have them separated. I keep mine as the stars and colors correlate, just because it's easier for me that way. So we've gone through these. This is great. It registers as closed eyes because I'm fairly certain that it thinks her eyes are closed here, but it's still a great photo and I'd want to keep it. So now that we're going to pretend that I've gone through all them, I would repeat that same process down here in blurred photos. I tend to shoot wide open, so it's going to register a lot of my photos this way, and I know that, so I make sure to go through with a little extra of a fine-tooth comb when I'm going through these. It also pulls out, you know, the pictures of the ground that I accidentally take, the ones that are taken while I'm moving, you know, anything like that, which is, again, part of the reason I think this is great. A great piece of software, because I'm only expecting it to do the heavy lifting. I'm not expecting it to make the final call. So let's pretend I've gone through these. Here, this one's not out of focus. I actually really like it. Same thing here and same thing here. I was actually looking for this photo earlier, so that works out. So now that I've gone through and gotten all of those, I have everything that I know that I want to keep is either up here in selected or down here in sneak peeks. So then I would open them up and I would go through these, the ones that the AI has selected for me, and I would select the ones that I like, and I just hit 5 and I call it like normal. But when I'm done, I don't have to go through and pull out all of the crazy out of focus ones, all of the ones with closed eyes. I'm only culling through the ones that are worth looking at. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So again, like for party images like this, you know, you do kind of want to look through them because like, this is fun. She would love that. It might be a little soft, but who cares? Just tab through them until you find things that you like or you hate, whatever. And by the time you're done, you've only looked at 1,200 photos rather than 3,000 photos. Or for me, I've only looked at 4,000 instead of 10,000. All I'm asking Aftershoot to do is look at the duplicates for me and trash, put it into a folder, not delete it, but like trash any photos that it knows I don't like, or it knows I'm not going to want. So from here, once I have everything done and I've got everything looked through and I've selected the best of the best, I would hit save changes, and it's going to then write these stars and these color ratings into the XMP data. And then you can export it. If you have a Mac, you can, I believe, still drag and drop into Lightroom. Is that correct, Justin?
You can, but it's not the preferred method. You're better off
That's-
doing a single click. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lightroom doesn't play ball sometimes, so.
Yeah, Lightroom is iffy. So my chosen method is I would export them into the same folder, but I will move the photos out of that folder and put it inside the subfolder of my selected ones. And then I would only import the selected photos into Lightroom. I don't need everything else because I've already determined that, you know, it's either out of focus, it's blurry, it's a duplicate. You're only bringing in the photos that you want to use. So
I have a
does that make
question.
sense? Yeah, please.
So does that mean now you have 2 of each file that you wanted to keep, or does it just move it into a separate file, but there's no duplicates?
So that's a good question. So when you click export here,
Yeah.
oh, cool. A gift from Zoom. Beautiful. You have an option. You can copy them into another folder,
okay.
or you can
Or
move them. I personally
Okay.
move them because I don't want duplicates of them. I want, when I look through the folder to see, you know, my eventual workflow has me rename them at the very end in Lightroom. So I want to just see the ones that are renamed and know, okay, those are the ones that I delivered. I don't want to have a duplicate where it's the original file name, but you have options. You can have it copy them somewhere else or just move the files. You can export them into the folders that they were in. So if you know, like knowing that, okay, I've categorized all my photos with closed eyes are in here from this event. Anything that's a duplicate, you can export everything into 5 folders, or you can just move out the ones that you like. My workflow is just the selected ones. I don't care about the rest of them.
Mhm.
Are we tracking?
Yeah, you can copy them, you can move them, you
Cool.
can rename them too if you want.
Yeah.
Or like you'd mentioned, if you click on your selected images and then click on export. Sorry, go back to the main screen here.
Oh yeah.
Click on that quick filter and click export. You can see it's just the 18 images.
Well, it's got the 1160 because it.
A sneak
So
peek,
I've
yeah.
noticed that, Justin. Maybe you
Yes.
can explain this. Is that when I click selected, it still thinks that the sneak peek previews are part of the selected. That's
Yeah,
why it
so-
gives me that 1160 number.
Exactly. So we link them together because some people prefer to categorize them differently. So they're always connected to each other. So that's why it's thinking that you have 1,100 images when you don't.
Yes.
But
So
yeah.
one thing I can do to combat that is, let's say I only needed the 18 images from this wedding. These are the only ones I wanted. Everything else is garbage. I don't care about it. So I would go into my sneak peeks, and I'm now going to select them all and hit 3 and turn them into duplicates, because that's what I've decided they are. They're duplicates of everything else. I only want these 18 images. That's it. So now we would hit save again. And now it shows me only exporting 18 photos.
Exactly. So if you were to click on export and then click on Lightroom Classic per se, it would actually just open the 18 images in Lightroom.
Yes.
So then you're only importing the 18 images, not all 3,000 images into your Lightroom catalog, and they'll remain in the same place that they are.
Yep.
So you don't have to copy or move anything.
Yep.
So I have a
Um,
quick question at this point. My Aftershoot workflow is very different, but I wanted to know, and this is to both Ali and Justin. Now your selections made within Aftershoot, that kind of trains the AI more, correct? Because now that especially for right now, the example that you used, that you switched, even the selected ones, some of them were quite good, but it's not your personal preference, so you kind of switch to using a few of them as selected. That will affect the AI training, correct?
Correct. So as long as you have that turned on, so giving us that feedback, it'll start learning from you over time. One thing I tell everybody, because when I first figured out like, hey, it's learning from me, or when we designed it to learn from me, it takes a little bit of time for it to actually pick up on things, because we need to see a pattern, right? There needs to be some sort of consistency to the changes we're making for us to understand it. But then every time we release an update, we basically take that information that you gave us, package it together, and send it back to you. So you have your own personalized, version of Aftershoot. So it'll start tweaking towards what you're doing. But again, it's something that also it's helpful because it's not an instantaneous, like, hey, I don't take any pictures of my feet, so get rid of this one. And then it's going to always get rid of that, because then the next time when you have like a picture of a shoe that you wanted, it would reject it. So we look for those trends, right? Those patterns where you reject 20 images of the ground that you don't want, and then say, okay, we really don't like images of the grounds.
Yeah.
I see, because I do the culling in Lightroom after Aftershoot.
Okay.
And I'm also I import the entire folder so that, and I was talking to Harshit in the morning just about that I realized that when it groups certain sequences, Aftershoot prefers to select something from the beginning of the sequence rather than the end of the sequence.
Yes.
And I was wondering if I have put this across to Harshit, I don't know, that if it can be tweaked or a setting can be included where we ask it to prefer the end of the sequence, because that's why we usually
keep taking the photo.
Yeah, when we are manually culling, we are culling backwards. That's one of the reasons. A lot of us do that because we are usually, when you get people in place, the end ones are better than the beginning of the sequence.
Yes.
That was just a statement. And the follow-up question to what I was asking was, then, do you guys have an estimate? Like, for example, Imagine AI requires 10,000 data points when it's retraining or adding on to the training. Do you have an estimate of what kind of data points it requires? Like what volume of refining the cull within Aftershoot is required for it to actually change? Or does it, if it doesn't matter, I love my process already, like what I do from Aftershoot, and then just, in Lightroom, I'm just, if I see there has to be a better picture of a particular selection it has made, I quickly turn on my color filter, pull up the duplicates, select, it's all set up in my keyboard anyway. So I quickly select from that and pull that in, and then again, go back to I'm just looking at the selected ones anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that workflow. That's one that I've used quite a bit, keeping it all in Lightroom, particularly because I'm always looking for pain points within the AI. So I'm always looking for what we really did wrong, so I can pull full data sets and send it to the guys. But with that being said, realistically, if the cull is pretty close to you, that's fantastic. So what we do is a little bit more complicated, so to speak, than how Imagine AI's pipeline would work, because there's a lot more points that we have to look at. So emotion is a varying factor, whereas like exposure, it's pretty dead set. Your exposure is always going to be your exposure. So with that, it takes a lot more data points to really perfect it. Like if you did 10,000 images, and if you culled manually every single photo over 10,000 images, we would learn from that, right? If you gave me 10,000 of the same consistent change, it would be perfect. But we don't have that kind of capability to start with you just saying, hey, here's a full
Oh,
wedding.
no, I was,
Yeah.
I wasn't
But
asking.
yeah, generally speaking, it's a longer refinement process because there are so many moving pieces to culling versus editing. So again, like
So you
I
would
said,
still recommend to do the proper, like the final culling inside Aftershoot rather than doing it in Lightroom?
if you would like to train it, absolutely. Yeah, it really, I mean, it's really if you want to spend the energy on training it, that was always our goal, is to kind of help it get better for you. But again, it really depends on how close it is right from the get-go. So like for me at this point, I kind of trained the original system, so to speak, right? So a lot of this all came from me culling. So I'm at like a 97%, right? Like I not the number that Aftershoot tells me, but physically 90%, 97% of the images I deliver to my clients are the ones Aftershoot chose. There's like 3 or 4 like outstanding circumstances, but I've probably run, way too many photos through.
Right. Yeah, I mean, last year when I first implemented it into my workflow, I really didn't have the mind space or energy to not to figure out, but to start something new. So I was like, I'm happy with where I was starting. It really still helped me a lot to give me a great starting point. And I don't do strict, I do more moderate. So it gives me really, and I've developed the workflow within Lightroom to just, pull up whenever required the extra files.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's good to know. Maybe I'll try it this year to do the other way through Aftershoot.
Yeah,
So
it's
there-
definitely helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the whole reason I developed this workflow in here, is because the more of the culling that you do within Aftershoot, the more tailored it gets to you, like Justin said. So for those of you that don't know Aftershoot and haven't used it at all, I know Afton and Lara, you both said that you've never used this before. The first 5, 6, 7 things that you run through here, you're going to be like, well, this doesn't do anything for me at all. I have to do all the work. Yes, you do. You have to train it. You have to give it the data to learn from. Like Justin said, he's the one that did most of the original training here. So it is going to pick some. It does have some sense of what the hell's going on. But you do have to train it to learn what you like from a photo. So the more of the individual image culling that you can do in the software, the better it's going to know what you want from it. And that's why this workflow that I'm trying to show you guys today is, it does help that. It helps to train the software more. It helps it give you more out of it in the end. Making sense?
Yeah, I have a question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you do 2 different types of photography, let's say weddings and boudoir, and you're looking for 2 different things for 2 different types of photography, is there a way to have 2 different types of customized culling? I don't know if that's a weird question.
That is not a weird question. So we are building out a system to tailor to different types of photography. So you can have, individuals for like landscape, boudoir, family, weddings. So it's not implemented yet. Fortunately, there's some different things, but a lot of it will translate over, funny enough. It doesn't seem like you would call the same in a boudoir and a wedding, but a lot of the key elements that we're analyzing are like emotion, like closed eyes. We're not looking to say, hey, like, oh, all these closed eye photos are great. That has less impact, right? We're always looking for the open eye version. But you are able to turn that off too. So like boudoir photographers, I know there's lots of closed eye stuff and newborns and whatnot. So we actually, in your settings, right before you start your call at the bottom, you can turn off the closed eyes or the blur or the duplicates as well. So you can really fine tune based on what you're trying to do as well. But yeah, generally speaking, we're looking more, a heavier weight in this whole process is emotion.
I mean, so for the time being, I guess, because I've done that for a couple of sessions of mine, just using different settings, basically for wedding, it's moderate. For in-studio sessions, I use more like light and try to get more in. And also one common question that I get from others about Aftershoot is that they are afraid they'll miss images. So I just wanted to mention that no matter what the sequences are or the size of groups are, it always keeps one of every sequence.
Yes.
Just want to mention that.
Yes. And I did talk about that when we were talking
Yeah.
about the duplicates. It'll always choose at least. So let's look at all of them in a row here so that we can see sort of how it chooses them from the grid here. And these are all in chronological order. So here, these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 images, it registered as like duplicates. So when you click on it, oh, it didn't read these as, here we go. So here it says this image has 4 other duplicates.
Mhm. You did, you changed them all over to duplicates.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I had already
we
changed
won't
them
see
all.
what it selected, but yeah.
Right, but it would choose at least one of these. So
Yeah.
it would have made one of them 5, and then the other 4 it registers them as duplicates. So it's always, out of every duplicate set, it's going to choose at least one. So here's one where it did. So it said that these 2 photos are really similar in its eyes, but you took more than one of it. So obviously it was important. So we're going to pick the one that we think is the better of the 2 and give you that one in your selected folder. So you're never going to miss a moment like that unless you've gone through and, you know, accidentally changed it or taken it out.
Yeah.
Am I tracking?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's we're always, you know, looking for. And so the only time you won't receive any sort of image is when it's in that blur or closed eye category. That's why,
Yes.
again, Ali, your workflow is perfect, right? Have those, there are those images that are marked as blurred or closed eyes, or those images that we didn't pick anything out because there was no similar images.
Mhm.
Right. It was the sole image and it had blur or blinks or whatever it may be. So we decided that it wasn't going to make the cut here.
Yes, but you still want to look through them because there might
Yep.
be something that you
Those-
as an artist or a human would say this is still fine. This is still a
Exactly.
moment that I would want to deliver. So you don't, you know, like I said, you don't want to trust this implicitly to do 100% of the culling for you. You're only asking this piece of software to do the heavy lifting. Now, John, you had mentioned in your message, I don't know if it popped up for everybody, that you wanted to look at family formals. This particular wedding did not have a lot of them, but we can do like bridal portrait stuff or bridal party stuff, and that'll should do the same. La, 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 here we go. So with each step up the ladder in choosing duplicates, it's going to choose more and more things as duplicates and have less selected images. I know me, and I know that I tend to just rapid fire on these things to make sure I get at least one where somebody's looking. So I have mine set to strict, or extreme, I think is the official term for it on that one. With extreme, it really looks mostly at composition and lighting and like blocks of color. So it has a tendency to, so here's the duplicates for this. This one didn't do it, but it'll put several of the same girl or different girls in one grouping. Because it finds if they're wearing the same color dress with the same color shawl with the same color hair on the same background, it thinks that they're the same. But it really does go through and pick, you know, just one selected of each girl if you put it on strict or less strict. For family formals, anytime a person is added or taken away, it does generally recognize that as a new grouping. And again, we'll follow that same process of, okay, here's 5 of the same photo with the same group of people in there, and we're just going to pick one for you. And it's going to pick the one where the most eyes are open, where it's got the best emotion. It doesn't really pick ones that have a whole lot of closed eyes. Now, there have been photographers that have said that, well, when I first started, it did pick the photos with the closed eyes. Yeah, it might when you're first starting, but you have to put in the time and the effort to train it to tell it what you want. So where was the family stuff here?
Yeah, and just to add to that, the extreme is pretty extreme. So you can definitely expect that there's the potential to have some images clustered together, particularly wider shots like these family photos here, like 54, 63. It's very possible that those could be clustered together if you swap one person. Again, because the face is such a small piece. So if you're bringing in a bridesmaid in or out of the same photo, it may not recognize the change since the dress is the same color and those sort of things. So if you're on extreme, it's really, really important that you do look through those to make sure that everything's there.
Yes, for sure. And like I said, I overshoot the crap out of everything, which is why I use the extreme one. And I just know that I have to go through in these situations and just manually quickly tab through them, because when we as people with eyeballs and not, AI, tab back and forth between two photos, we can tell when people have come in and out of the frame, especially because we were generally the person who was there and we took the photos. So I just use it with extreme caution. Just go through and make sure you check everything, especially in the beginning when you're first using this. So like here, yeah, like the groom came in and out in a couple of these photos. So we have some wide ones. They're probably not in order because they're probably taken on the other camera. But yeah, does that make sense? I am the worst public speaker in the world, guys, and this whole thing sort of blew up bigger than I thought it was going to be. So I apologize if I sound like I'm bumbling. But am I making sense? Is everybody sort of tracking with me here?
You're not bumbling, and it's making sense.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, thanks so much for doing this.
Any other questions? Because that was really, a bulk of the stuff that I wanted to go over, is how to use Aftershoot in a way where you're selecting the ones you want to keep rather than selecting the ones you don't want to keep, because that is the base piece of this that we're coming from at a photo mechanic. And going into this, that was the biggest piece of the workflow that I really wanted to show you guys, and that there is a way to do that.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
So just, and I'm sorry, you might have answered this before, but I've kind of had to bounce back and forth. But are there any particular hotkeys or shortcuts you found particularly useful with the program?
Just your basic ones. I don't really use a whole lot of hotkeys. That's just not something that's in my personal workflow. I think Avi said he has some cool stuff set up, so maybe you guys can chat about that separately. But when I'm just changing, like, say I loved this photo, say there was something magical about this and I wanted it to be selected, I just hit 5. I hit 4, but I just hit 5, and that automatically turns it to green, gives it 5 stars, and puts it into that selected category for me.
Yeah, one of the hotkeys, some of the hotkeys that I think are probably the most overlooked but the most useful are the A, S, and X keys. That's what I actually use. Sorry, I'm getting phone calls on everything right now. That's the hotkey that I use.
Okay.
The ASX. So A is for add, S is to swap, and X is to reject. So what I'll go through, like when I'm going through my images, if I find an image that I want to just add in, I hit A and it adds it in. If I find an image that, like, let's say one was selected, but it wasn't the one that I wanted, I hit the S key when I'm on the image that wasn't selected, and it'll actually swap in that duplicate set. So it'll bring the 5-star to the 4-star and the 4 stars to the 5-star. And then the X key will just reject everything.
When you use the A to add, does it change it to green, or what does it do?
It'll change it to whatever your settings are for selected. So the A, like if you have 5 stars and green, it'll make, if you hit A, it'll make a 5-star green image. If you can make sure in your preferences, you can actually turn that off, so it would only change it to one or the other as well. We designed it to be very customizable, and you don't have to use those hotkeys. You can make your own for the same things, right? So in your preferences, everything's customizable. So all the shortcuts and everything, you can go ahead and just make them whatever you're comfortable with. But again, ASX are really like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is obviously the stars, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0 are the colors. But I personally would rather just use the ASX because I have one hand on the mouse and the other hand on the ASX keys, just doing what I need them to do as I go through.
So if I haven't made any changes to the default settings, the A would be would turn it to green.
Five star
Five-star.
greens, yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, thank you.
So quick question about the swapping one. You said when you're that's the S, right? S key, and it goes through the duplicates in order in swapping?
No, so actually, if you were to, Ali, if you actually go down an image, maybe, so use the down arrow and you don't go
I actually
down.
never tried that, so I'm curious.
I've never used the swap function either.
Okay,
That's
all right,
not-
so, all right, cool. So Ali, hit the enter key for me. And you have 5555 selected. If you hit the S key, it's going to make, so that's selected. If you just hit the S key, that'll make the 5547 be 3 stars and the 5555 be the 5 stars.
Ooh, okay, so I have to be on the opposite one.
Yeah, you be on the one that you want selected. And you hit
Okay, so
Okay.
I have to select from the duplicate window which one I wanted to switch it with.
correct.
Okay.
And so to navigate that, the up and down arrow keys. So when you're in this screen,
Right.
up and down arrow will navigate you through your duplicate set. And then the right and left arrow key go you from next image to next image. So yeah, you can just kind of navigate through
That's
and
yeah,
swap
that's
them.
pretty cool.
That's
Because
useful. I didn't know that because I would just add them. I've just been hitting 5
Yes.
and just adding them to it.
Yep, you can
Got
just
it.
add to, yeah.
No,
just
I had one question about when you're looking at it where you have the duplicates. Sometimes, because I've been using it for a while, I notice sometimes that when I go into that duplicate area, I'm seeing several that are in green.
Mhm.
So
Sometimes it'll
when you go to
choose.
swap, how would you do that? If you're looking in that duplicate view and you're
So
seeing.
Yeah, so in that case, if you were to hit swap, it will swap the 5547.
So
Or,
I
you know,
hit
the
this
closest-
one.
Yeah, the closest duplicate to it will swap it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right,
gotcha.
so yeah, so yeah, sorry, if you're on 5555, it'll swap to 5547.
Mm-hmm.
No, I have to be clicking on 47 for it to swap.
US 30 East exit.
interesting, yeah.
For the swap function, when it's showing you the main picture you have and then the possible alternates you have, when you're hitting S, is it also automatically changing the ratings or is it just showing you possibilities?
So when you hit S to swap them, it is swapping them. It is swapping the ratings and the
Rating.
colors here.
Then turn left.
It's
And
not
draw-
just.
East 50 square.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
like
it's not at random. You have to tell it what you want to
Yeah.
swap, right? So you would go to like 5550, the bottom image, and you would say, this is the image I want to be selected. And you hit the S key and it'll swap out with the image that was selected, so that the image that was selected is now the duplicate and the image that was not is now the selected.
Mhm.
Right. And then it's modifying those ratings as well, right? Like
Yes.
it's changing that. Got it. Okay. Yeah.
If
that
you
is
have
really-
selected, like I don't use the ratings, I use only color. So if, as Justin said, if you have selected, if you have made your settings as to do both ratings and colors, then it will do both. Or if for me, I've just tested it now, it just does the colors. So.
Mhm.
And Justin, since you're here, just as a feature request, it would be cool if it could just cycle through the whole duplicate set. Then I don't have to again lift my finger for that to select the image. You know what I mean? So if you're doing the swap and it goes through the entire thing, so if I in sequence the entire duplicate set.
So you can manually do it with the up and down arrow keys. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, you can.
You can look through and then hit the S.
Right. I'm just saying that if I'm in the loop, so I use a gamepad to do this process, and I don't touch my mouse. So I'm just saying that if it just as a future request, if it's possible, that instead of selecting which to swap with, say based on the window right now, it just swaps through 5548 to 5550. It just goes through that as I hit S, and then I can move on. When I find the right one, I can move on to the next image, just.
Gotcha. So that's something that we're working on in the grid view. So in the last view, so that you're able to actually in the grid without having to go into the loop view, cycle through your duplicates there.
So I can do that right now, or is it in?
It's in progress.
Works.
It's
Okay,
not
perfect.
released yet, but yeah, in here, it's a little bit more complicated to do such a
Right.
thing. Just
Oh,
because
that works too. I mean, that would be
Yeah.
awesome too.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So just to review, guys, really quickly, my workflow is I bring everything in, I let Aftershoot do what Aftershoot does best, and then I move everything that it has selected into the sneak peeks category because I don't let Aftershoot choose my sneak peeks, and that's really the only way that this workflow works is if, you know, that's not something you're interested in here. But I move everything there, and then I check through my blurred, I check through my closed eyes, and I select out the ones of those that I would still like to keep. And then I would go through everything that's under sneak peeks, and then tag 5 to make them selected, the ones that I want to keep. So it functions sort of like Photo Mechanic, where you're choosing the ones you want to keep rather than looking through the selected and rejecting the ones that you don't want, just because our brains are wired to work the other way around.
Yeah, and there is a couple different ways to go about that too. So you guys can totally message in the group if you're wondering or have any questions too. I'm always available to help, and you know, support is always available to help too. But like just like you said, sneak peeks. If you hit the X key, if you select all and hit X, you would just reject them all, and you could just hit A to add them back in. So you could still have the sneak peek feature on if you wanted, or you could, some people do the workflow where they'll actually run it at 4 stars. So selected will be 5 stars, and they leave 4 stars blank. They just change that and then put everything down 1 level and then add it back into selected, or you can choose the filter option too. So
Yeah,
lots of different,
there's a bunch of ways to do it.
100 ways
but
to do it.
exactly, but that was just one of the things that I found to be frustrating with Aftershoot when I first started using it. Was I don't want to reject the images I don't want, I just want to choose the images I do want, and that's just because that's how we were taught to do this. So this is one of the ways that I found to make it work, do that, and you know, still do the heavy lifting of selecting out the duplicates and taking out the trash for me. Any other questions, guys?
Ellie, I'd love to know sort of how long it took you to get used to the software and how much time it saves you per wedding, just sort of like from a data.
Yeah. So I don't just use this for my personal business. I am also employed by a studio where I have to, you know, call and edit 4 or 5 weddings a week. And so I think because I was using it so heavily, it took me less time than most people I think would. To get used to it. But I'd say in the very beginning, I think I did 2 or 3 weddings before I really got the hang of it. And just was like, okay, this is the workflow that I am going to use, and make this software work for me. In terms of how long it takes me in Photo Mechanic, it probably took me an hour and a half to cull through 3,000 images. With this, it probably takes me 40 minutes to go through, and that's not including the time that it takes to, you know, for the magic unicorns to do what they do. That's just me going through and checking it, and I like to go through twice and just triple check myself because I want to make sure that I'm not missing a moment that I remembered being really cool. You know what I mean? But I would say that having it basically take out the trash images, the ones that you didn't mean to take, you know, where you accidentally took a photo of the ceiling or your light was overexposed, whatever, having it pull that out just saves the brain power of having to click through those pictures. You can do it a lot faster.
And how often do you find that in the duplicate groupings you are satisfied versus dissatisfied with the one that it selects?
I would say more often than not, I am very satisfied with the one that it selects. It's pretty spot on. I think what I do most with the duplicates is that I just add to my selected from them. So there are 2, because like I said, I put it on extreme cull because I really want it to narrow everything down for me. So I find myself sometimes adding back to that. So I'll take something that it tagged as a duplicate, and I'm like, no, this is just different enough that I like it and I want to keep it as a select. Very rarely do I find that it chooses the wrong photo.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else?
I had a question.
Sure.
You had mentioned in the beginning that you can like link it to your social media. I kind of missed that.
No, Justin, I think what Justin meant with that was how it chooses the sneak peaks.
How does it do that though?
So we have a database of images that have trended on social media that we compare your images to based on composition, lighting, emotion. So essentially, we're just doing it's a comparison model just to see. It's not your social media, it's all of social media, all the wedding images, boudoir images, family photos, every image that has trended. And we kind of compare them side by side and pull out what we would suggest based on what we found has worked in the past.
Gotcha. Okay.
And again, it's a loose suggestion.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for sitting through this with me while I blubber on about how I like to use Aftershoot. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Like Justin said, he's also always available. I just really like this program. I think it's got a lot of potential, and like every week they're coming out with a new update almost. So they are really working to make this program the best it can be, and I love it. I think that it's got huge potential for our industry, which is why I like to share cool things. So yeah, if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. But thank you guys again so much for taking time out of your day to listen to me. I appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Allie.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you so much for taking the time to help us all out. Really
Yeah,
appreciate
of
it.
course. No, I love doing this stuff.
Yeah.
So awesome. You guys enjoy the rest of your Monday. And good luck using Aftershoot. It's gonna be awesome.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.